Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the program. Come on in. Come on in. We got some breaking news here with a 10-point deal that has been made. We are now at a new count for the deadline. We have seen that the U.S. and Iran are pushing back this strike, which was going to go down in about 6 minutes. They had 6 minutes. And apparently some sort of ceasefire has been met, and we're going to get into that today. So these are just two massive storylines. On one side, we have this breaking news. Iran has made a deal with President Trump, potentially stepping back from the edge of a wider war after days of final warnings and red line kind of speech. On the other side, NASA's Artemis mission is literally coming home from the moon with Orion and the crew on the final leg of a journey humanity hasn't taken in over 50 years. So we are live and unfiltered here today, guys. I hope you come in. I hope you like the show. I hope you hit the like button. And we're going to talk about some of the things like what the deal reportedly includes. We do have some news coverage. Pakistan checked in for a minute, so we're gonna have a listen. Let's go. Welcome. Hit the like button. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the program. Iran is a nation that prides itself on being one of the world's earliest centers of civilization. And today, Donald Trump threatened that that civilization could die tonight. The same US president who 2 days ago was posting profanities on Easter Sunday and mocking Islam. Tonight we ask, what is he up to and what does it mean for this war? With his 1 a.m. deadline looming for massive infrastructure bombardment, he posted, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that
Breaking
to happen,
news, guys, come
but
in.
It probably will." But he also hinted at hope for an 11th hour deal, writing, "Maybe something revolutionary wonderful can happen. Who knows?" Tonight, Pakistan is offering a glimmer of hope. But for now, Iran is saying it'll take the gloves off and hit the Gulf even harder, depriving the US and its allies of the region's oil and gas for years to come, threatening a global energy crisis that will affect us.
Taco stand.
We are facing a fateful moment in this war. What comes next could be massive escalation, or could there still be a way out? US Vice President J.D. Vance, thought to be among those trying to broker an end to the war, says it's up to Iran to make a deal.
I hope they make the right response, because what we really want is we want a world where oil and gas is flowing freely, where people can afford to heat their homes and cool their homes, where people can afford to transport themselves to work.
It's really just about the Strait of Hormuz.
What's happened today on the ground does not bode well. In some ways, it looks like America and Israel have already started their effort to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age, to quote the American president. Iran says 9 people were killed by a missile attack on a residential building in Sharia. 2 more killed when a railway bridge was hit in the city of Kashan. Strikes also targeted the Gale No bridge and a railway closer to Tehran. Another railway bridge attacked in Zanjan province near a village called Aminabad. And similar civilian targets in Iran's East Azerbaijan province, where a road bridge was hit. There have been power cuts reported in the Karaj province, where a railway was targeted. And then there's what happened in Kharg Island, the heart of Iran's oil industry, hit again ominously with multiple strikes by the US for the first time in weeks. Well, international correspondent Diana Magnay is in Jerusalem tonight, live to her after we speak to Mark Stone at the White House. Mark, we've learned not to be shocked by this president, but threatening a genocidal end of civilization in Iran seems to plumb new depths. Before we get on to that, some breaking news out of Pakistan tonight, giving us all a little bit of hope. What are they saying?
Yeah, look, I mean, yes, it's been a head-spinning day, without question. The president is in the West Wing at the moment. There is a Marine on the door.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome.
We
How
can
y'all
assume
doing?
that he is in the Oval Office, and we have heard from Caroline Levitt, who is his press secretary, that he is aware of a tweet from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a tweet which is important, a statement which is important because it could represent the off-ramp that perhaps Donald Trump, well, would he like to take it? We don't know, but certainly I think the world is on edge, and as we wonder what might happen after this deadline, there are many who are hoping the off-ramp will be taken. The tweet, the statement from Prime Minister Sharif of Pakistan reads as follows: diplomatic efforts for the peaceful settlement of the ongoing war in the Middle East are progressing steadily, strongly and powerfully, with the potential to lead to substantive results in the near future. To allow diplomacy to run its course, I earnestly request President Trump to extend the deadline for 2 weeks. Pakistan, in all sincerity, requests the Iranian brothers to open the Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture.
So now we have a 2-week ceasefire. Look, the only deal that's ever a good deal is when both sides aren't completely happy with the deal. So we're going to see where this goes.
Also urge all warring parties to observe a ceasefire everywhere for 2 weeks to allow for diplomacy to achieve conclusive termination of war in the interests of long-term peace and stability in the region. Reading that, Dom, to me that feels like the most fulsome effort at diplomacy that we have heard for quite some time in this crisis, coming from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a country which has been at the heart of the effort to try and find some common ground between the Americans, the Israelis on one side and the Iranians on the other side, a country which talks to both sides. And we, as I say, we know that the president, the American president, has seen this statement and is considering it. 8 p.m. Eastern time is the deadline that he has given before, well, depending on how seriously he takes his demands, before he commits genocide.
So by the way, the deadline is up right now. All right. 3, 2, 1. It is now 1 minute past the deadline, and they seem to have made a deal here.
In Iran, you could put it like that, given that he is saying that he will wipe out the Iranian civilization. 8 p.m. tonight, that is 1 a.m. in London. It's the early hours of the morning in the Iranian capital. Extraordinary times. Is he serious? Well, look, I've spent the morning speaking to diplomatic contacts of mine in various corners of the world, people I've spoken to over many years, and to a man and a woman, they have all said to me they just don't know. They do not know, and the governments they represent do not know what President Trump might do after 8 o'clock tonight. That is an extraordinary position for the world to be in.
Mark, thank you very much. We'll come back to you if there is a reaction to that breaking news out of Pakistan from the president, but thank you for now. International correspondent Diana Magnay is in Jerusalem tonight for us as well. As Mark was saying there, Diana, it is the closest we've got to a publicly articulated peace plan since this conflict has begun. Having been in Tehran recently, I can tell for the Iranians, it may not be enough. They say a ceasefire isn't enough. They want a comprehensive peace deal and a guarantee that this war can't start again. What do you think the Israelis are going to make of what's coming out of Pakistan tonight?
Well, I think the complication for Israel is whether they would then stop their war against Hezbollah, which was one of Iran's demands for any kind of peace plan. And I think that Israel thinks of that really as separate from the ongoing war with Iran and would like to continue to pursue its war against Hezbollah as long as it possibly can. Because
help me out with that like button, guys. Thank you.
To disarm them, and it has even admitted that it won't be able to disarm them, probably conceivably within its current operation. I think we've had word from Tehran that this proposal from the Pakistani Prime Minister is being looked upon favourably. So that is something positive. It is just a 2-week ceasefire in exchange for them opening as a goodwill gesture the Straits of Hormuz for 2 weeks. That's much shorter than the original proposition. But Iran has been very clear that they will hit extremely hard if in 4 hours' time Donald Trump hits them. I mean, it really, in the statements that we've been seeing coming from Iran, it is a gloves are off situation. They've said we will strike beyond the region, beyond this Gulf region where I am, where they've been striking to date, that their targets will be expanded considerably, and they have listed various targets specifically. They say there'll be a range of surprises, but named certain oil and gas industry. They say they're going to hit Aramco, the world's largest oil company, situated essentially in eastern Saudi Arabia, just across them, across the Persian Gulf there. They are going to try and hit the 2 major pipelines, the one through Saudi Arabia, the East-West pipeline, also the Jumeirah pipeline, which allow Gulf countries to bypass the Straits of Hormuz. Now, if they strike those 2 pipelines, obviously the oil price is going to go up massively. And they say, just you wait, it will go up to $200. If you think it's bad now, it will go up. That's another threat that they've made. They've said this night will remain...
What are the gas prices where you are, Chad? I'm in Los Angeles. I'm broadcasting live from Los Angeles now. The gas prices, I've seen them as high as $6.59. I don't know why it's such a weird number. Can't it just be 6 or 7? I'd rather be 6, but $6.59, pretty expensive.
Etched in the world's memory for decades. That's to quote the spokesman for the International Revolutionary Guard on X. And he's also outlined bridges, causeways, highways, the King Fahd highway that connects Saudi Arabia to Bahrain. He's talked about railway bridges here in Israel that they will target. Also AI centres here in Israel in response to Israeli strikes on a university yesterday and a defence-related research institute. So there is a broad spectrum of targets that Iran is outlining. It is definitely big talk. Now, whether they can do it remains to be seen. But just look at the strike that they made on the Ras Laffan LNG gas field, the world's largest LNG field, in the middle of March. Took out a huge proportion of the world's LNG. Oil prices rocketed up. It's costing Qatar $20 billion annually for the next 5 years till they repair that. That was just a lucky strike for Iran. So I think they feel they have...
by the way, LNG is liquefied natural gas, for those of you who are wondering what LNG is.
Or certainly they're talking the big game that if Donald Trump hits them hard, they can hit back hard. So time is, the clock is very much ticking. I think we can expect in 4 hours' time to see a barrage of missiles coming our way and all across the Gulf. There's a picture on the Revolutionary Guard.
And this was, they're still expecting more attacks. But there was something interesting that was happening is that in Iran, in order to thwart off any attacks, they have formed some human chains around some of the more critical targets, your power plants and things like that. So let's see where that goes. This is people literally out there acting as human shields for this power plant behind them. And there is a nuclear power plant there as well. There it is. Wow, look at this. I mean, they really are doing the most. Let's go forward here. Look at that. People are just surrounding all of the key targets, waving flags, supporting the, well, I'd say current regime, but it's really kind of a toss-up as to what's happening there now. But you could see some of this footage from Iran. People are out there willing to take those hits. See, there's one of the bridges. Okay, so before we're talking about bridges, as well as not only nuclear power, but the regular power plants for electricity. And, Jesus, kids out there, what the hell? Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So let's take a quick look at Iran's 10-point peace plan, which I'm going to sort of bring this into the screen a little more. How about it? Let's do this so you guys can see this a little bit better. I'm going to drop screen here and boom. Will that work? No, not quite. We're going to go back to the other one. So here are the 10 points of Iran's peace plan. This is what Iran is presenting to the U.S. Number 1, guarantee that Iran will not be attacked again. Number 2, permanent end to war, not just a ceasefire. 3, an end to Israeli strikes in Lebanon. Number 4, lifting of all U.S. sanctions on Iran. Number 5, end to all regional fighting against Iranian allies. 6, Iran would reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this one is the most important one as far as this whole deal goes, is opening that Strait of Hormuz. This is a bad look for any upcoming elections to have the gas prices go so high. You know. Number 7 from the Iran playbook here, Iran would impose a $2 million fee per ship transiting Hormuz. So now they're going to put a toll. They want a toll. I don't think that's going to fly. Iran would split these fees with Oman. Iran would establish rules for safe passage through Hormuz. And number 10, Iran would use Hormuz fees for reconstruction instead of reparations. That's pretty interesting. So that is the list of 10 points of the Iranian proposal. And this was just before let's hear what Iran was saying just before. I mean, I think they're gassed out over there. So let's hear what they were saying.
Clock to make a deal with the United States or possibly face
this is before the ceasefire.
Obliteration of key infrastructure sites. President Trump today turning up the pressure on Iran while also remaining open to diplomacy. That's his tactic. It works.
Which part, Beck?
His deadline just hours away now, 8 p.m. Eastern. The president wrote a post this morning. Maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. President Trump said this last night.
8 o'clock Eastern time, and after that, they're going to have no bridges, they're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah, Stone Ages. We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen.
Brand new video now from Central Command shows our U.S. military firepower at work. As part of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. forces continuing to destroy terrorist targets inside Iran. So far, they have taken out, and this is a huge number, 13,000 targets and damaged or destroyed more than 155 vessels. Fox News can confirm.
You know, who's paying for all this? You know what the answer is, Americans.
The U.S. bombed dozens of sites on Karg Island overnight. And the focus was on the bunkers there, radar stations, and ammunition storage areas. International military strategist Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb is coming up next in focus. Though, let's talk to our chief foreign correspondent, Trey Yingst, on the ground. We'll get a report from him, and we always can press in with at least one good question for Trey.
Dr. Trey.
Yeah, Harris, good morning. We're just 9 hours away from President Trump's deadline for Iran to make a deal, or the president says he will target Iran's energy infrastructure, bridges, and power plants. Overnight, the United States launched dozens of airstrikes against Iran's Karg Island, a critical piece of oil infrastructure. We understand, according to Fox's Jennifer Griffin, the targets included bunkers, radar stations, and ammunition storage. Landing docks were intentionally not targeted, according to senior U.S. officials. Now, the IRGC has warned it will target U.S. oil interests in the region and that it will make U.S. and its allies deprived of gas in the Middle East for years. The president speaking yesterday from the White House saying this about the situation.
Do I want to destroy their infrastructure? No. It will take them 100 years to rebuild. Right now, if we left today, it would take them 20 years to rebuild their country, and it would never be as good as it was. And the only way they're going to be able to rebuild their country is to utilize the genius of the United States of America.
Those negotiations going on as we
utilize
speak.
The genius of the United States of America.
Harris, and the president told me over the weekend that Iran isn't even negotiating on their nuclear program anymore. The president said the big thing is they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. They're not even negotiating that point. It's so easy, the president added. That's already been conceded. Most of the points are conceded. Now, with talk of diplomacy across the region, we're also learning more about that daring rescue that happened over the weekend to save a stranded airman in Iranian territory. High-level U.S. sources told Fox News that while the airman rescue was going on, the CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, directed a strike on an IRGC headquarters in an underground facility near the Iranian capital of Tehran. B-2 bombers from the United States used bunker buster penetrating bombs, the same weapons used in Operation Midnight Hammer. The source talked to Fox News saying the headquarters was obliterated. All of this is happening as the Israelis are continuing their strikes against the Iranian regime. A senior Israeli official telling Fox News today they launched a series of strikes against rail infrastructure inside of Iran after warning civilians there to avoid train travel. Harris?
And that gets me to just a quick follow-up question. So the Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we are crushing the terrorist regime in Iran, but we are doing so with even greater vigor and with increasing force. And he talked about hitting the train tracks and bridges used by the IRGC. Just talk to me real quickly about this ramp up now that he mentioned.
Yeah, Harris, right now we are seeing a complete disconnect in the capabilities of the United States and Israel versus Iran. Each and every day, the United States and Israel are ramping up their strikes against the Iranian regime. Yesterday, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said it was the largest bombing campaign since Operation Epic Fury began. The campaign today is expected to be even larger. At the same time, the Iranians are continuing their attacks across the region with cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones. But each and every day, their capability is getting reduced, and that is part of the strategy of the United States. I'm told by officials here in the Middle East that the U.S. and Israel can carry on a campaign for far longer than the Iranian regime.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
Right, let's look at the other side of the news here. We're going to go and cruise on over to CBS Chicago.
Tonight with breaking news, President Trump backing off his threats to launch a large-scale attack against Iran, citing progress in negotiations. Let's get right to political reporter Chris Ty, who has the latest on this situation that really just changed in the last 20 or 25 minutes.
Since you signed off at 5 o'clock and we kicked on here at 6, at 7 o'clock Chicago time, Joe, had been the focal point, of course, if Iran did not hammer out a deal acceptable to the president, which included, among other things, reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The president said, and I'm quoting here, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again." He said, "I don't want that to happen, but it probably will." 90 minutes before an air campaign to knock out bridges and power plants would have been triggered, the president posting a 2-week ceasefire is now on, pending the opening of the strait. Here's what he wrote on Truth Social, saying, and I'm trimming this down, he says the Prime Minister and Field Marshal of Pakistan said that they wanted him to hold off the destructive force, subject to Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agree, the president said, to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks, calling it a double-sided ceasefire. Again, these are the president's words. The reason for doing so, Trump said, is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives
Hit that
and are
like
very
button for
far
me, guys.
along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace, saying the White House received a 10-point proposal and believe it is workable based on ways to negotiate further. Almost all points of past contention, the president said, have been agreed to between the U.S. and Iran. We should point out we have not yet heard from the Iranian government to corroborate all of this. In the days leading up to this, there was public messaging from Iran that talks had stalled. The president, frustrated over oil prices and the strait being tied up, said the deal must be agreeable to him, though he was tight-lipped on what that meant exactly. The president's language this morning, talking about the end of civilization, created a fracture among some of the president's most loyal allies, including Senator Johnson of Wisconsin. We talked with a historian about why the president, in his estimation, felt boxed in, and a political insider on how rare this language is.
Show some sort of strength in a moment in which he feels weak, in which oil prices are rising and he doesn't know how to reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, I've never heard that before. I'm checking through history. I don't think that's ever been said before, even in World War II, before we dropped the atomic bomb, I think.
Since the war began in February, Trump has set a series of deadlines threatening escalation of the conflict, only to back off just before they expire. So, Joe, I think there's going to be a lot of parsing through. Did the president blink? Was this savvy negotiating? So we'll continue to follow it, of course, very closely.
Despite all of the talk and the rhetoric, there's always been this question of, can President Trump find an off-ramp?
Right.
Because this is what, as you said, these experts are saying he's been boxed in with a number of these threats.
And what does a win look like, both politically and on the ground in Iran? So, again, the key thing tonight that we'll be watching for in the next few hours is messaging from Iran, because we have only heard the president's side of things. We need to hear if they agree with this and whether or not they will agree to the strait opening up, because that's conditional here.
That is the key. All right, Chris, thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
All right, so let's go to another side of the news here. Still different kinds of coverage, so you can see everything from all sides, make your own opinion. And I do welcome everybody. You know what? Let's just check the temperature in here. Put a 1 in the chat if you support Trump. Put a 2 in the chat if you do not. Let's see who's in the house today. You know, anybody's welcome here, okay? So it doesn't matter what side you're on. Doesn't matter to me, all right? So let me know. Put a 1 in the chat if you support Trump, 2 in the chat if you don't. Let's get it.
Back, everyone, here to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. We come back to you with breaking news. We were talking about earlier about the markets really showing signs of strength, and now we know why. President Trump just putting this out on Truth Social, saying, based on conversations with the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States
and if you hit the ones and the twos, do me a favor, hit that like button as well. Thank you, guys.
And Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized on behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East. It is an honor to have this long-term problem close to resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And then signs it President Donald J. Trump. So that is the breaking news, of course, coming from the White House, coming from President Trump himself on Truth Social.
Falling Garden World.
Less than 90 minutes away from his deadline. Now we are seeing that extension play out in real time. And we are seeing the markets once again jump in futures. Dow futures right now up 400 points, S&P 500 up 55 points, and NASDAQ pointing to up over 240 points. So again, investors continuing to look at this, and we'll continue to digest that news. And we will wait for more updates, not only from the Trump administration, but the Department of Defense, as well as other policy makers. So
all right, so we're going to jump over to the other side once again. We're just jumping back and forth between news outlets here, so you can sort of make your own opinion. Back to CBN.
Breaches of international law. And instead of focusing on that, we're talking about the President of the United States using bombastic language that creates the perception that we're the ones who are planning to violate international law. I don't believe our forces are doing that. I don't believe our commanders will let that happen. But it's a tragedy that we even have to address that.
Well, Jeffrey Korn, we appreciate your time tonight, sir. Thank you.
Smooth.
Thank you.
For anyone who's just joining us, President Trump has agreed to extend his deadline for Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz or face significant strikes. In a Truth Social post,
is it just me, or do these are these news ladies like flight attendants? What are they? They're in a union, and they gotta get some new ones in there.
Prime Minister of Pakistan and requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran, and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. Of course, as we were just talking about with Jeffrey, the president has started the day by threatening that, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. For now, it appears that threat has been pushed back for 2 weeks. Let's bring in CBS News national security analyst and Marine Corps veteran Aaron McLean. He's also host of the School of War podcast. Aaron, in terms of your tea leaves of options, this was one of them.
And the key phrase in this tweet is subject to Iran opening the strait. And I have some questions about that. What does it mean to open the strait? Iran could say, for example, that the strait is actually open right now.
Their own ships are going through.
Iran ships are going through, and other ships, the countries of which are coordinating with Iran are going through. So does this mean that ships can go through the strait, but they have to hug that northern Iranian coast and follow that channel? I would not consider that the strait being open. The strait being open is those international channels in the middle are free for passage, and you see traffic starting to go through them. Again, that's a big question here for the hours and days to come.
Why was this the most appealing item on his menu of choices?
Well, gosh, you can tell the president didn't want to pull the trigger on going after these big-scale economic targets because he kept delaying it. He started this war back on February the 28th, identifying 5 military objectives. They were ambitious, but they were limited in the sense that he actually explicitly said he didn't need regime change in Iran to consider this war to be a success. He talked about Iran's missiles, its nuclear program, its navy, and its support for terror proxies. However, Iran then played this card of closing the Strait of Hormuz in return. Essentially, as we were talking about earlier, took the global economy hostage by doing so. This left the president with relatively few options. He didn't want to do the protracted campaign of convoy operations through the strait. The Iranians, for some time there, we'll see where we stand as the night plays out. The Iranians were not willing to open it back up in response to his diplomatic overtures. So he got to this point where essentially threatening to force state collapse in Iran through military means was his only remaining option. But this, of course, would allow for substantial retaliation from the Iranians on economic targets throughout the Gulf, and not necessarily provide any short-term fixes to the economic problems that the closure of the strait is causing.
Jesus.
Let's stay.
So there's a lot of turmoil that it's causing. Now, when you have to use human shields, you need to recruit the human shields, right? So this is what appears to be a recruiting tape about those human shields from the IRGC. Take it.
I invite all our youth, athletes, artists, students, university students, and professors. Tomorrow, Tuesday at 2 p.m. around.
Why is the translator talking like this?
On the power plants that are our national capital, regardless of any taste or political viewpoint, and belong to the future of Iran and to the Iranian youth.
Seems like a nice fella.
Gathered to tell the world that attacking public infrastructure is a war crime.
I don't think so. I don't think so, dude, bro, guy. They're gonna nail me on this. From airstrikes, and the president did say that take out Iran within 4 hours, and that Strait of Hormuz has become quite a stickler here. It is one of the, I think it's what, 40% of the world gets through the Strait of Hormuz. Play it with me. So as you can see here, some of the destruction Can you imagine living in a place like that? I love America. I mean, it may suck in a lot of ways, but it's great in a lot of ways. So we're going to jump over here to hear a little bit more about this suspending the bombing and attack of Iran. Let's go.
Breaches of international law, and focusing on that, we're talking about the President of the United States using bombastic language
to finalize that deal. All
right, plan B. We're going to jump over to this story. We heard of a very daring rescue of some pilots that went on a mission to go get another pilot. So let's hear about that.
A Fox News alert, it's being called one of the most daring search and rescue missions in history. U.S. forces rescuing a crew member missing.
All right, we're going to jump over to J.D. Vance while I see what's going on with this audio.
Thank you, thank you.
I think we have a YouTube glitch here, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. We'll get back to that story in a second.
Thank you, please, please. So before I started my remarks, I actually had a special guest that asked that I give him a phone call, and we'll see. Let's hope he actually answers. So this is going to be very embarrassing.
Let's guess.
All right.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
Okay. Try one more time. I get a good signal here. It's ringing.
Okay, but shouldn't there not be any issue with the tech of the vice president getting in touch with the president? Come on. Quit playing with me.
Hello, Mr. President. How are you?
Hi. Hey, JD, could you give me a second? I'm just... Wow, that's some...
Who's on first?
Mr. President, you are on with about 5,000 Hungarian patriots, and I think they love you even more than they love Viktor Orban.
Well, I can't believe that. I can't believe that because I love Hungary and I love that Victor. I'll tell you, he's a fantastic man. We've had a tremendous relationship and he does a job. Remember this, he didn't allow people to storm your country and invade your country like other people have and ruin their countries, frankly. He's kept your country good. He's kept Hungarian people in your country. And he's done a fantastic job. And let me tell you, I like him a lot, but if I didn't think he did a good job, I wouldn't be making a call like this. But boy, that sounds like a big crowd, and that sounds like my kind of people. What a crowd. JD must have made a very good speech to get this kind of a response. I guess. How did JD do? Did he give a good speech, everybody?
It's very early, sir.
It's early. Okay, well, I just want to tell you, I'm a big fan of Victor. I'm with him all the way. The United States is with him all the way. And it's a real honor to talk to you. You're really incredible people with great enthusiasm and brilliance, because you're brilliant people. And I really love it. You have a man that kept your country strong, and he kept your country good. And you don't have problems with all of the problems that so many other countries have because they let their countries be invaded. And you don't have that problem because of Viktor Orban. That's the only reason you don't have that problem. There was a lot of pressure on him to do it, and those other countries made big mistakes. So I wish you a lot of luck, and I love you all.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's obviously a tough act to follow, but I'm going to do my best because we have got to get Viktor Orban reelected as Prime Minister of Hungary, don't we?
Wow. That's bad.
Now, this is actually my second trip to Budapest, but the first as a public official. Then I was younger and less gray, and my wife, our beautiful second lady, was pregnant with our second child. Now, we're back in Budapest. I'm the vice president, and she's pregnant with our fourth.
This guy.
And during our official meeting with the Prime Minister, I asked him today whether we could benefit from some of those generous family subsidies. But he said, unfortunately, Mr. Vice President, they're only for Hungarians.
Let it cook. Let it cook.
Now, we have had a whirlwind of a trip already, but I find myself thinking the same things on this visit that I did during our brief vacation here as a private citizen a few years ago. Budapest is a beautiful place. It was built by people, your ancestors, who used its beautiful architecture and landscape to lift up the human spirit. And it's an honor to visit as relations between America and Hungary have reached new heights. An exciting era of new ties on everything ranging from energy security to business and trade cooperation to closer cultural bonds. So I want to say, my friends, thank you. Thank you for hosting me, and thank you for being a great friend of the United States of America.
What?
This evening, I wish to address every man and woman in Hungary, young and old, citizens of every region, of every age, and of every background. I want to speak to the mothers and fathers of Hungary, to the grandparents who are called.
Let me get this straight. Instead of not wanting any war, you two in the chat, you want to send MAGA and Barron to the front lines. That's interesting. Fucking idiots.
The dark days of communism and those first lights of freedom. To the hardworking families who strive to give their children happy and healthy lives. To the young men and young women who seek to start families and careers themselves.
So just more humans. It doesn't matter, right? That's the only thing that's important to you, right? You what do you have, a fucking box of ice around your head, bro?
And to everyone in this audience specifically, the young, bright,
send
patriotic
these people,
Hungarians
send
who
these
care
people to die, not these people. Fuck you.
passionately about this strong nation and its future.
The fuck out of here.
I'm here for a simple reason, because I admire what you are fighting for. You're fighting for your freedom, you're fighting for your sovereignty, and I am here because President Trump and I wish for your success, and we are fighting right here with you.
You realize how stupid that sounds?
We want no more and we ask no more than to be allies against those who seek
Send Martha Stewart to the front lines. Shut up.
to push
Front
Hungary
lines.
down. And you have drawn the attention of the American people, really people all across the world, because Hungary has been on the front lines of such foes. In 2016, when the rest of Europe threw open its gates, you said,
yeah, I know. It's interesting that J.D. Vance is campaigning in Hungary.
no.
He's going to have some other comments coming up in just a minute, but I do have this back up about the missing American airmen.
Nearly 48 hours behind enemy lines in Iran. The U.S. colonel who had a bounty on his head was reportedly armed with only a pistol for defense and managed to make it to an elevated ridge in a mountain area where he activated an emergency beacon. Our next guest was one of the military's top combat search and rescue recovery experts, retired battalion commander, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb joins us. Colonel, so great to have you because you can speak directly to
full bird colonel
and complexity of this rescue. And for our viewers just waking up, this was one of the most successful, amazing combat search and rescue missions in history. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Griff, good morning and happy Easter. And what a way to start Easter is to know that we have one of our own back who's been missing for 48 hours. This is an extremely difficult mission set for all services, all branches of the military. And we all know this too, for those of us who've served and done this.
Is that what his name stands for?
I've never seen something so superbly choreographed and executed. Was it mistake-free? No. Did we lose some equipment? Yeah, sure. But in the end, what's most important was the recovery of our downed pilot and showing again the world how important it is to us when we say that we leave no one behind, that we mean it, and we're willing to put a number of assets against it. And that's Special Forces teams on the ground, helicopter pilots, fixed-wing pilots, drone operators, even space-based assets and intelligence assets from other agencies. It is impossible to completely capture how difficult and complicated a mission like this is behind enemy lines. And this one was done superbly. I, for one, am completely impressed.
And what does it say, Colonel?
I don't think they had the gas to get the MH6s back, right?
That not only the leadership of President Trump, who was in the Oval Office working around the clock, staying in touch with every detail, but what does it say also about the success of Secretary Pete Hegseth, the fact that we not only were able to locate this airman in a very difficult situation, put in hundreds of assets, coordinate multiple agencies, and not a single U.S. casualty?
Well, it says the superbness of the training that goes into all of this. This is not a mission set that these units adopt while they're in theater all of a sudden, just because someone is missing. The A-10 pilots are called Sandy qualified A-10 pilots. They get certified to do this. The special operations forces on the ground are trained specifically in this as well. All those involved have some sort of specialized military training to make sure they can execute this mission the best they possibly can. The rebuilding of the military after what happened during the Biden administration is a huge thing, goes directly towards this success. President Trump, of course, being there the entire time, watching this all develop and making sure that it happens. Secretary Hegseth focus on it as well. I think those who wondered about the quality of our military up to this point, if there are any of those people left, they have seen our single-minded mission focus and ability to execute on a large scale, no matter how complicated it may be, and see us doing it extraordinarily professionally.
It sends a message to our enemies and worldwide that we have by far the most superb military anywhere on the planet, matched by none. Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb.
So that is the Lieutenant Colonel bringing us some information about that rescue mission. Very interesting stuff. Let's head back to JD here. See what he has to say about Iran. And
strange activists came to tell you to erase your heritage. You said no. And when a war erupted in your neighborhood, you were kind and generous. You opened your neighborhoods, your homes, and your hospitals. But you never forgot the needs of your own people and why to Hungary, Hungarians must always come first. And for all these reasons, the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, and the American people, we admire you. And we want you to make a decision about your future with no outside forces pressuring you or telling you what to do. I'm not telling you exactly who to vote for. But what I am telling you is that the bureaucrats in Brussels, those people should not be listened to. Listen to your hearts. Listen to your souls, and listen to the sovereignty of the Hungarian people. Unlike some of the leadership of Brussels, I'm not threatening you or telling you that we're going to withhold funds to which you're legally entitled. You will make the decision about Hungary's future, just as my fellow Americans will make the decision about America's future. So I come here not in the spirit of telling you what to do. I come here in the spirit of friendship to offer a few observations about our shared civilization and how we can advance it together. You have advanced that civilization boldly in recent years, and you have done so with Viktor Orban at the helm of a proud Hungarian nation.
Hit that like button for me, guys.
But boldness, we know this, boldness attracts naysayers. And that is something I want to talk about for a bit. A shared threat from within that both of our nations face. I speak, of course, of a far-left ideology given quarter in university circles, in the media, and in our entertainment industry, and increasingly among bureaucrats on both sides of the Atlantic. Now, its followers don't see Western society as flawed, yet worthy of reform. Instead, they view the very foundations of our shared civilization as illegitimate. In Western history, they don't see a proud tradition, they see only injustice. In our borders, they see exclusion and racism. In Christianity, they see not liberation, but oppression. And in the family, they see constraint. Their most radical members, of course, tear down monuments to our national heroes or throw buckets of fake blood on precious artworks in museums. They stage assassinations of law enforcement officers. They set fire to churches. They declare they're never going to have kids lest they increase their carbon footprint. But we, of course, we see something different, my friends. We defend our borders because we know that it's the most vulnerable among us who suffer when our streets are given over to chaos and violence. Some of them call themselves feminists, pretending they care about women. Yet it is their policies that have seen an explosion of migrant crime and sexual assault against the very women they claim to protect. We believe in energy security because we don't want the least of us to be unable to afford to heat their homes or to drive themselves to work. They say they care a lot about corruption. They take it very seriously. But they turn a blind eye to the corruption of Brussels, which has seen bureaucrats become millionaires by threatening and cajoling the sovereignty of the people across this beautiful continent. Now, you all know this. Much has been made about our administration. The European press asks constantly, do Trump and Vance, do they have something against Europe? Let me be clear. We love Europe. We love it. How can we not? We were birthed from this continent, the United States of America. We love its people. We love its culture. We love its beautiful architecture. And we love the amazing history of this continent. But because we love this culture and these peoples, we reject the faceless bureaucrats who would drive your energy costs through the roof and open your country to millions of unvetted foreigners in the name of progress. And in Hungary, I actually see real progress under a man named Viktor Orban. I see a trading partner who will bring in record investment from the United States of America. We've invested more in Hungary than we ever have in our history. I see clean streets where people of different faiths and tourists of all nationalities can enjoy a drink or a nice walk in safety and security. I see a government that invests in its own people, in promoting families, creating good jobs, and building an education system that teaches love of country rather than hatred of civilization. And most of all, my friends, because I'm the Vice President of the United States, I see what the bureaucrats hide from many of you. Energy costs are higher in almost every country in Europe than they are in Hungary. That's because Viktor Orban has fought for energy security while most European political leaders have not. I see the way those same leaders sneer at the normal, God-fearing people of Hungary. I see how they call the people of Hungary and America backwards for wanting cheap electricity bills. I see the way they look down on peacemakers like Viktor, a man who has done more than any leader in Europe to bring about a successful resolution to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Over 1,000 people in the building, welcome. We're watching J.D. Vance, United States Vice President.
I see the way they look down at, they scoff at European and American peoples who want job security and control of migration.
Hit the like button.
And most of all, I see that those who hate Europe the most, who hate its borders, its energy independence, the people who hate its Christian heritage, they hate one man above all others, and his name is Viktor Orban. And if they hate him, it means he's on your side. And to them, I'm going to say the reason you hate Viktor is because he is for the people of Hungary. And I stand here today because President Trump and I stand with Europe. We stand for sovereignty. We stand for Hungary. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with the man who has done more to defend those values than anyone else, Viktor Orban. You know, the leaders of this country, perhaps more so than any other across Europe, understand that Western civilization, so despised by the left, it's not something that's self-sustaining. We can't sit on our hands and expect that everything is going to be fine. Our civilization, we've got to work at it. We've got to renew it. We've got to defend it. The people in this room understand that sovereignty and national identity are not problems. They are a necessary part of the solution. And when one country protects its sovereignty, even a country of 10 million people in the heart of Europe, it raises uncomfortable questions for those who insist there is no alternative. There is an alternative, and it's right here in Hungary. Think about this. If Hungary can secure its own borders, others can do the same thing. And if they do not, if they fail to control migration, that is by choice. If Hungary can place its own workers first, there's no reason that its neighbors can't do the same. And when they do not, that too is a choice. Viktor and this entire political leadership, they become a target of the bureaucrats because he shows that real sovereignty is possible. He shows you can be pro-Europe, you can be pro-America, and you can be pro your own people, and he's showing it in spades. And you all know this, but we're not just protecting our own people, the citizens of our respective countries. We're protecting the ideas that allowed those people to flourish for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. We just celebrated Easter, of course, all of us. And for 2,000 years, our civilization has been shaped above all and beyond all by the sacrificial love of Jesus Christ. Built upon the laws of Moses and the laws of Rome, and that society has produced not oppression, but the most free, tolerant, and prosperous societies in the history of humanity. Concepts like God-given natural rights, a sense of duty to one's neighbors, an obligation to protect the weak and the vulnerable, a belief in free will and individual conscience.
Free will.
No set of ideas has brought mankind closer to universal human dignity and flourishing. From those principles that founded our civilization, everything else flows. The way we pray, the way we form and raise our families, our sense of law and order, and the way we dispense justice. These are truths rooted in Scripture, but let's be honest, not every society shares them. Because our civilization, while I believe it's universally true, it has not been universally adopted. It is not the default state of human existence. The greatness of London or Munich or a picturesque village on Lake Balaton, it's easier to take for granted when it's the world you already live in. But that world didn't spring from nowhere. It had to be built. Every brick of that beautiful Parliament building here, every span of bridge across the Danube, every law, every custom, all belong to work of generations built over time. But what's been built over generations can be undone in a single lifespan. That means that what our ancestors built, we're proud of it, and we love them, we must protect. I think this audience, this group of people, uniquely understands the stakes. Because the story of Hungary, I saw this when I was here a few years ago, I've seen it again today, is of a people who have repeatedly prevailed over those who would erase their sovereignty. And in that process, those people tried to erase what makes Hungary so special to begin with. Now, most recently, of course, that came in the form of communism, a lie that took the noble pursuit of equality and claimed it could be enforced by gunpoint. That's no coincidence, and you all know this better than I do, that once in power, the communists in Hungary set about dismantling every institution that gave this great nation its
personality for the super chat.
They shuttered churches. They rewrote history. They framed 1848 not as a national revolution, but as a mere prelude to
Really
a Marxist
appreciate it.
struggle.
Thank you.
And they didn't do it all at once. They did it piece by piece. What they themselves called slicing the salami, removing one by one the institutions that anchored Hungarian life. But ultimately, thanks be to God, the spirit of King St. Stephen prevailed in this nation.
Thank you again, Mr. Personality. If you want to put some words in there, I'd be happy to read them for you. I'll definitely read out super chats if you want to throw some words in there. I'm happy to do it. Thank you so much for your support.
And today, what I'm asking is very simple. I want us all to renew that spirit together. For again, we see sovereignty challenged in Hungary. Again, we see faceless bureaucrats in faraway countries telling you how to live, how to pray, how to speak, and how to govern yourselves. But you have a choice.
We're in the pocket now.
Do you bend the knee to tyranny, or do you proudly stand with St. Stephen and choose a real leader this weekend?
And the crowd is chanting encore.
We're talking about a leader who feels real pride in this place, in its history, in its culture, and in its way of life. A leader who will fight to preserve those things while also building a better future. Because the real divide in our time it's much more fundamental than partisan labels or specific policies. It's fundamentally between those who believe in the future and those who do not. Across the West, we've got a small band of radicals, people who do not believe in the future and are often the very people who so wish to govern us. It's kind of weird. If they don't believe in the future, why do they want a life in politics? Yet they speak not of renewal for our nations, but management. They're not trying to build a great future. They're trying to manage the decline of the greatest civilization in the world. Some of them say things like, human beings are no more than pollution upon the earth. They look at our cultures and our borders. They look at the very idea of a nation and ask how we can get rid of them. Every position, I believe, flows from this fundamental error. They reject mothers and motherhood, fathers and fatherhood in the name of liberation. They condemn children to mutilization and sterilization in the name of gender care. And they practice institutional murder in the name of, quote, end of life planning. And if you dare speak up about it, they will fight using the modern tools of social media to silence you through censorship. We understand that we have a sacred duty to protect life, to defend the value of our people's hard work, to invest in our workers, our families, and our industry. And to make it easier to build a life that is affordable for all of our citizens. We are committed to our future because we are committed to the very idea of our people. We're committed to the idea of life itself because it is a gift from God and we never forget it. Now that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, ladies and gentlemen. That's why President Trump sent me to stand here with Victor today, something I'm very proud to do. Because I believe our nations are incredibly capable of greatness when we come together.
20 gifted memberships.
Our work is not zero sum. Indeed, it cannot be, because our goal is always to build a better life for our people.
Thank you so much.
These bureaucrats, they've given us a false choice. Think about this. They tell us that the options are between isolation and globalist integration.
Just saying.
They have framed their project as the inevitable future, even as their very institutions stagnate and crumble. But we know there's a better way. Cooperation between countries with shared values and parallel destinies. That is the story of Hungary and America, and we're going to keep fighting for it. A lot of you may not know this, but this is the story of a much longer Hungarian-American friendship. When my own country sought its independence 250 years ago, almost to the month, it was a Hungarian soldier by the name of Michael Kovács who helped found the first American cavalry units, ultimately giving his life in our struggle for independence against the British Empire.
Thank you, 86, for another
generation later,
gifted membership.
Americans
Thank you so
welcomed
much.
Louis Kossuth,
Appreciate you.
the hero of 1848 and the father of Hungarian democracy.
Thank you.
Now, Kossuth was greeted in the United States like a rock star, much better than a politician. His arrival in the more general cause of Hungarian independence, it captured the imagination of our young nation. He received the distinction, the second foreigner ever in our nation's history after Lafayette to address a joint meeting of Congress.
Yeah.
And his
Another
bust
10 gifted
stands
memberships
in
from
the United States
GOP.
Capitol to this very
nice.
day.
Thank you so much. VIP. I think right now we're
Now, during that trip, I didn't realize this until a few days ago, that during that trip to the United States, Kossuth visited my home state of Ohio to make his case for Hungarian independence. We have some Ohio fans over here. That's good. Before the state legislature in Columbus, Ohio, he declared, quote, "The spirit of our age is democracy, all for the people and all by the people. Nothing about the people without the people. My nation." He went on, "My nation will rise, called to resurrection by the eternal principles of the law of nature and of nature's God." Even then, this great Hungarian patriot was aware of the intimate link between sovereignty, between self-government, and between our divine creator. And I'm proud to say that according to the history books, the part of the country that gave him the proudest reception and the biggest reception during his entire time in America was my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio.
WKRP in Cincinnati.
You have to imagine this, and you tell these stories and you think, how can the bureaucrats think that we're not capable of self-government and choosing our own destiny? Because when Kossuth came to Cincinnati during his tour of Ohio, there were railroad tracks lined with citizens, delighted to behold Hungary's great freedom fighter. Reportedly, 100,000 of them showed up just at his one stop in my hometown. And the affection, I gotta say, I'm a little biased here, the affection was mutual. The people of Cincinnati, Kossuth said, quote, changed a wilderness of primitive forests into an immense city, of which there exists a prediction that by the year of our Lord 2000, it will be the greatest city in the world. And no offense to Budapest, but I think he's right about that. But it tells you something very real, that when Kossuth looked at the United States of America, he didn't see something radically different. He saw something familiar. In our nation, he recognized the same forces at work that were shaping Hungary. People building something of their own, out of wilderness, with purpose, conviction, and a deep belief in where they came from and what they were called to do. And standing in Cincinnati, he saw something in America that he believed was just the beginning. The West, he exclaimed. There you can see the cradle of a newborn humanity. It was true then, and it's still true today. But America, like Hungary, was not a place just of rest. It was built around the idea of creating and renewing. And those early Americans, like the heroes of your own nation, took that inheritance and they shaped it into their own. They added to it. They fortified it. They passed it down to their children and to their grandchildren, who then did the same. With the expectation that generations later, those grandchildren would carry it forward. On his fateful trip to America, Kossuth announced that Hungary was to become, and this is perhaps my favorite quote, the cornerstone of national independence on the European continent. This guy was a prophet.
You can hear that extra mic from the audience. The sound guy is not very good.
Kossuth called this the cornerstone of independence, the cornerstone of sovereignty on the European continent. And though he didn't live to see it become so, I declare that prophecy is true today in 2026. Now, under Viktor Orban's leadership, you have held on to the civilizational goods that make a country worth living in the first place. Sovereignty, prosperity, history, a sense of national community, the redemptive nature of bringing new life and new families into the world. This is an awesome and difficult responsibility, because across much of the West, there's a growing uncertainty about whether these things matter or whether they're worth fighting for. But not here.
Help me out and hit that like button, guys. I appreciate
have
you
stood
being
up
here. Welcome.
to the bureaucrats. Yeah. You have stood up to the nihilists. And now I wonder, will you do it again?
I'm Tony, by the way, if you guys are wondering.
Will you stand against the bureaucrats in Brussels? Will you stand for sovereignty and democracy? Will you stand for Western civilization? Will you stand for freedom, for truth, and for the God of our fathers? then my friends, go to the polls in the weekend, stand with Viktor Orban because he stands for you and he stands for all these things. God bless Hungary and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
From Vice President J.D. Vance. We are going to jump back over to the other side of the news. Oh my God, Jake Tapper and CNN. Let's hear what he's got to say about this.
Just an hour and a half away from that deadline, President Trump seconds ago taking to Truth Social to say that he is talking to Pakistani officials, and based on that conversation, he will agree to stop bombing for 2 weeks. He also says that Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz for that time period. So I'm going to read part of this to you. It says, he says subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. So they still have to agree. I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with the definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. That's also news, Jake. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem to a resolution.
I don't understand, DJ De La Cerda. Would you rather have them? Would you rather have them go and decimate an entire freaking country? I don't want to see that. So I'm pretty happy. Put a 1 in the chat if you're pleased with this ceasefire. Put a 2 in the chat if you're a warmongering dipshit asshole. Okay, like DJ De La Cerda.
So a couple of things that we're going to still be asking questions about. What is in that 10 proposal? What has actually been agreed to? And I will go back through that language because I said that Iran had agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz. It does sound as though he's still leaving it there as that he's only agreeing, if that is in fact the case, that they will fully open the Strait of Hormuz. This, of course, again, coming as President Trump has been threatening to wipe out an entire civilization, saying that he was going to...
No more people need to die. You know what I'm saying?
Bomb bridges, to bomb civilian infrastructure, saying at one point that the Iranian people wanted him to continue bombing. And we knew behind the scenes that there were ongoing conversations, negotiations between the two parties, between Pakistan was serving as an intermediary between the two countries at various times. Senior White House official telling our Elena Treen that Israel is part of this ceasefire, that they have agreed to suspend its bombing campaign while these negotiations continue. Now, of course, we don't know where that ends. We don't know if that's for 2 weeks. It's not specific, but Israel is part of this starting point, which is this ceasefire. So all 3 sides are participating. At least that is according to a senior White House official. Now, back to what your point is about the 10-point plan. I mean, we've been hearing about a 10-point.
Are you subscribed yet? Make sure you hit that subscribe and the like button, guys.
Plan from Iran for weeks now. The idea was that the United States presented a 15-point plan, that several of the points on that plan, Iranian officials were saying were unrealistic, they were impossible to meet, and they came back with their own plan. We are still at a loss as to what exactly was in that plan. What are the actual points? What exactly is the U.S. now saying that they are willing to work with? President Trump had gone back and forth on the idea of reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Clearly, he has focused on that as a top priority after last week saying he didn't need to reopen the strait as part of a deal to end the war in Iran. So whatever it is, Iran is likely to have said long-term the free and fair passage through the Strait of Hormuz, because that is something President Trump just 2 days ago or just yesterday said was a top priority.
Breaking news, Iran's foreign minister just responding to Trump's ceasefire announcement. I want to read part of it to you.
He says if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. Obviously, those words are crucial there. And the Supreme National Security Council of Iran has also issued a statement that I have here, and I'll just share you a couple of the important lines here. One of them is that the regulated passage through the Strait of Hormuz under the coordination of the armed forces of Iran, thereby conferring upon Iran a unique economic and geopolitical standing, which sounds like in a translation, Iran saying that they see this as acknowledgement that they control the Strait of Hormuz. Let's go to Zachary Cohen, our national security reporter here. Zachary, what are you learning about this? We're just getting these dual statements, one from Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and also from the Supreme National Security Council that I just shared part of. What else stands out to you here?
Yeah, Aaron, the piece of this about the Strait of Hormuz really is the most remarkable thing, I think, that jumps out immediately and says Pakistan has submitted the same to the American side. Said plan emphasizes fundamental matters, inter alia, the regulated passage to the Strait of Hormuz under the coordination of the armed forces of Iran, thereby conferring upon Iran a unique economic and geopolitical standing. So effectively that's reiterated in the tweet as well, saying that at least for the period of 2 weeks, the Strait of Hormuz will be open effectively, though with coordination via the Iranian military. And it's important for people to remember that the Strait of Hormuz was not controlled in a literal sense by Iran prior to those U.S. Israeli joint military strikes that kicked off this entire conflict several weeks ago. Iran responded to those strikes by closing the Strait of Hormuz, and it appears that this ceasefire is predicated, at least in part, on the legitimization of Iran's control of that key waterway, and that goes with an implication of if the waterway can be opened temporarily, Iran likely could reclose the strait should negotiations not progress in a way that they see fit effectively. So it also says that talks between the U.S. and Iran should occur as soon as this week. In Islamabad, Pakistan has been acting as the key primary intermediary country between the U.S. and Iranian regimes. A lot to hammer out here, but the Iranian statement does seem to suggest that, in principle at least, the Trump administration has agreed to the broad contours of their 10-point proposal, at least as a starting point for these negotiations. And again, it's hard to overemphasize how important the Iranian control and demand that that control be legitimized of the Strait of Hormuz is as far as a starting point for these talks.
Yes, and that, of course, may be the absolute deal breaker. And I'm just reading the final sentence here of the statement from the Supreme National Security Council in Iran. They say, our hands remain upon the trigger, and should the slightest error be committed by the enemy, it shall be met with full force. They also emphasize that this deal such that it is, does not signify any termination of the war. Obviously, we're talking about a temporary ceasefire of sorts. Just sharing this information, right? So we've got the response here from Abbas Araghchi, Foreign Minister, and also from the National Security Council in Iran. But two things really stand out here. One, the safe passage that Trump is saying is going to be provided for 2 weeks as part of this, kind of the central part of it, through Hormuz, they're saying is possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces, which obviously implies that Iran controls the strait. And then from the National Security Council, they say this confers upon Iran a unique economic and geopolitical standing in terms of them regulating passage through the Strait of Hormuz. So what do you hear in all this?
I mean, listen, who knows what's going on? Donald Trump lies every single day. Clearly, he's not telling the truth. But if you accept even part of the Iranian statement, Donald Trump has agreed to give Iran control of the Strait of Hormuz. That is extraordinary. If you go deeper into the statement from the Iranian National Security Council, they claim that Trump has also agreed to Iran's right to enrichment, to suspend all sanctions against Iran.
This live stream just passed 225,000 views, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
And to allow Iran to keep their missile program, their drone program, and their nuclear program. Now, who knows if any of that is true, but if at the very least this agreement gives Iran the right to control the strait, that is cataclysmic for the world. And it is just stunning that that's where we have gotten to, that Donald Trump took a military action that has apparently, at least for the time being, given Iran control over a critical waterway that they did not have control over before the war began. So it just doesn't sound like there's actually an agreement, because what Trump is saying is totally different than what the Iranians are saying. But if Iran has the strait permanently now, what an error, what a miscalculation this entire endeavor was.
I mean, the day began, Senator, with a post on Trump's social media website that I don't know what you thought when you saw it. I have said that I did not think it was real, and I had to go check it because it was so stunning. But it began with, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. That is how the day began. Of course, this outcome that is not going to happen tonight is one that everybody would want, and yet the path to get here and where we are right now. How do you see it?
Well, I mean, listen, the president has promised to commit war crimes. He's promised to eradicate an entire civilization. We have never, ever seen that in the history of this country. That's why I and many other people have been talking for the last 24 hours about the 25th Amendment. It does seem that Trump has lost touch with reality. I mean, we just can't accept a president who is literally promising to destroy an entire civilization, to murder hundreds of thousands of innocent human beings. That alone should be grounds for the removal of this president. But he thinks, I guess, that the threat of mass-scale war crimes has achieved some success. But as we're learning in the last few minutes, the success seems to be that Iran has more power over global commerce than ever before in our lifetime. And so the combination of the threat of war crimes along with the outcome of this so-called ceasefire, it's just really hard to get your head wrapped around.
No, it is. And I was saying last summer along the Strait of Hormuz, when the whole possibility was that Iran could escalate by doing something, it still seemed to many, although possible, unthinkable, right? And how the world has changed since then, just in such the reality has changed. I want to ask you about one other important thing, though, Senator, and that is obviously the military operation which was astounding, to rescue the downed U.S. airmen inside Iran over the weekend. Their performance and what they did is truly incredible. And I'm sure every American is rightfully proud of that. Secretary Hegseth speaks about this war in explicitly Christian terms, as you well know, and he does so frequently. He compared that airman on Easter weekend to Jesus Christ. I wanted to play for you what he said.
Shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday. Flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn.
Senator, what do you say to that analogy?
She paused like that on purpose. I'm telling you.
It's clear that for many in Trump's orbit, this is a holy war. And I think you have to pair what Hegseth said and has said with Trump's threat to end the Iranian civilization, right? This is a historic, proud civilization. The regime is evil. They have perpetrated great harm throughout the world. But the Persian civilization, a Muslim civilization, is a historic, proud civilization.
Super chat says,
and the reality is
for
that
this channel
it is probably
like
true
this stream.
that President Trump
Thank
and
you so
others
much, guys. Let's
see
get
this
those likes
through
up over
religious
300.
terms,
Appreciate it, 86.
See good, see righteousness.
Thank you guys for being here.
Eradicating a Muslim civilization from the world. That's disgusting. And the reality of some of the rationale for this entire operation may be coming into focus. It never made sense as a national security matter. Everyone knew that beginning this war would almost certainly end up with Iran controlling the Strait of Hormuz and the American economy being held hostage by Iran. And so maybe we're seeing some of the real rationale, the true objective, a war waged by a majority Christian nation, apparently, against a majority Muslim nation. Again, something that I think most Americans would have thought unthinkable as a premise for war just a handful of months ago.
Wow. Very interesting stuff. And we are going to cut now over to this side. Oh, hey, everybody. Redo the screen now. You get a close-up here. Give me 1 second to bring this screen up here for you guys. Thanks so much for being here. I'm going to take you over to another news outlet giving their take on this ceasefire that has happened between the United States and Iran just today.
And thanks for joining us on a special edition of Detroit's only nightly political talk show. This, my friends, is The Pulse. I'm Roop Raj. The day started with President Trump issuing a stark warning to Iran, only to do an about-face and pull back on the threat for 2 weeks, as long as Iran plans to a 2-week ceasefire. Tonight, we're covering this from all angles. A retired naval intelligence commander, a professor of Near Eastern Studies at Wayne State, and an Arab American state representative all ready to weigh in on what could come next. But before we look ahead, let's take a look back. The president started the day by reiterating a deadline of 8 o'clock tonight for Iran to reach a deal to end the war or reopen the Strait of Hormuz, just days after a profanity-laced post on Easter Sunday where the president said today would be, quote, power plant day and bridge day. He made this post shortly after 8 this morning, saying a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Now, we'll have much more on the reaction to this post here at home in just a second. But shortly before 7 o'clock tonight, President Trump said Iran proposed what he's calling a workable 10-point peace plan to end the war, and said as long as Iran agrees to a 2-week ceasefire, he'd suspend bombing and attacking Iran. Earlier today, the U.S. struck military targets on Iran's oil hub of Karg Island, and the president's earlier threats prompting questions about possible war crimes. The Associated Press spoke with a Southwestern law school professor about that.
It's unprecedented. Even at the height of World War II, President Roosevelt didn't say that we're going to end German civilization or Japanese civilization. And it's shocking in the context of the earlier shocking statements he made, in which he threatened to engage in the war crime of indiscriminate attack. Yesterday, he again doubled down on his promise to return Iran to the Stone Age.
And take a look at this. Iran urged young people to form human chains around power plants. And you'll see many of them showed up. They're not only protesting President Trump's threat to attack, but trying to protect key infrastructure the president actually threatened to obliterate. Iran's president says both he and his citizens are ready to sacrifice their lives if it comes down to it. As Pope Leo called the president's threats unacceptable, he called on everyone to push for peace.
Come back to the table. Let's talk. Let's look for solutions in a peaceful way. And let's remember, especially the innocent, children, the elderly, the sick, so many people who have already become or will become victims of this continued warfare. To remind all that attacks on civilian infrastructure is against international law, but that it is also a sign of the hatred, the division, the destruction that the human being is capable of. And we all want to work for peace. People want peace.
Well, joining us now is retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot. He also served as White House Senior Advisor to Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush. And we do thank you for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to be with you.
If I talked to you 3 hours ago, it would be a much different conversation because we would be looking at a matter of time before an 8 o'clock deadline would strike and the world would wonder what would happen. Before you heard about what the president posted at 6:35, essentially agreeing to this pause, what was it that you expected to see happen at 8?
Yeah, look, there was a lot of tension, not only in the United States, but across the globe. All eyes were on this. This had very traumatic, significant consequences for going forward. But I think deep down, many of us anticipated a deal would come forward. Trump wanted a deal. Pakistan was working hard, communicating with the United States and Iran to come to this deal where we've gotten to tonight. So in many ways, I'm not surprised, but we are all extremely relieved. And this is only a pause, not an end to this war. We have got a long way to go.
Yeah, in fact, there are a lot of points on this plan. In fact, 10 of them, to be exact, on this 10-point peace plan that so many people are talking about. If you could lift the curtain for us and tell us a little bit about what you believe some of these points could be.
So what listeners and viewers should be cautious of is that this 10-point plan, a lot of it initially came from Iran themselves, Pakistan providing some options here. But look, what Trump wanted and what he tweeted on earlier today is really opening the Strait of Hormuz. That is a absolute solid point that needed to happen. But if you look at the 10-point plan, and a lot of this is unknown, it's not solidified, it'll be worked out in the next 2 weeks, largely in Islamabad, Pakistan, which has opened themselves up for negotiations. The one thing that's missing out of this is there's no discussion about nuclear weapons. This is simply to tamper down the exchange of fire and destruction at the moment. But the Strait of Hormuz is absolutely the critical point here that we heard Trump talk about tonight, which is what we expect to see open going forward.
I just got producer Aaron Jordan in my ear, who just told me that literally moments ago, Iran has said that they agree to this 2-week pause. Reflect on that for a moment. It is important, obviously, when you're trying to broker a deal that you have all sides on the same page.
You know, it really is. And there's two ways to look at it. First, Iran, it is to their advantage in many ways to extend this out. It allows them to regroup because there will be no attacks on any of their infrastructure or military going forward. However, we know that we've been negotiating and trying to find a moderate within Iran, which I believe is their president who runs the day-to-day operation. He's not the Ayatollah. And so this creates an opening from a moderate perspective to work with Pakistan in communicating messages to build on this potential plan. It all begins with the Strait of Hormuz. If there's a single mine or a ship that's attacked, once this opens, everything comes crumbling down. What we got to pay attention to is what Trump will do if there is any attack on any ship in the Strait of Hormuz. And I think we've got a good idea where he would go with that based on his attacks today on Karg Island.
So if you were to reverse engineer some of his messaging here, essentially he was putting forth a dire message that once we reach this particular part of the plan to open the Strait of Hormuz, if someone tries anything, all of those terrible thoughts that people had about wiping out so much of that country would come true. Is that accurate?
I would step back from that, and I would look more again at Karg Island. 90% of the world, 90% of Iran's oil moves through there, 90%, so it decimates their economy. Today, we destroyed most of their military infrastructure on that island. We have 2 huge military expeditionary units, basically almost on carriers, but they're not carriers, they're big amphib ships. We've got a 3rd carrier heading towards the Middle East right now to provide force. If things don't go right, I would not be surprised to see the United States take Karg Island, shut off Iran economically to bring that sort of pain to force them to the table again.
You know, it's interesting because in one perspective, you can kind of believe that so much of Iran's power has been obliterated and removed and neutralized. But then on the other hand, you see these continued attacks on Arab nations from Iran and also into Israel as well. Talk for a moment about the power that Iran still does have.
Huge power, and they have proxies, adversaries to Israel and the United States, which are everywhere, including Yemen, which is just south of Saudi Arabia, which is still launching rockets at Israel. And going forward, when you look at this stand down, this cooling off period, we're going to do a lot of intelligence collection. We have our satellites. Just because we're not targeting doesn't mean we're not collecting information. What I would be cautious of is whoever we are working with in Iran, there's a potential because the Iranian Guard, their National Guard, they're huge and they do not like the United States, very hardcore against Israel and us. You could see a potential elimination of any moderate in Iran willing to work with us. That's the other side of the coin that we need to be cautious of, is finding who we can work with and making sure that the hardliners in Iran don't decimate those people that we hope we can work with.
Dr. Chabot, also getting information in my ear right now that essentially Iran has agreed to talks with U.S. officials starting on Friday in Pakistan, in Islamabad. So we'll be hopefully talking to you more through the week as these things develop. You always offer such a ground and sound perspective on such a complicated topic. So thank you for doing that for us and all of our Metro Detroit audience. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Dr. Paul Chabot. We're continuing this conversation with Professor Saeed Khan, a Near Eastern Studies Associate Professor at Wayne State University. You're watching The Pulse on Fox 2. Everyone knows, the whole world was watching to see what this 8 p.m. deadline would look like. And to everyone's relief, it seems as though at 6:35 p.m., the president's call for the potential end of an entire civilization was taken back. But this is whiplash for a lot of people. Kind of unpack for us.
Thank you, everybody.
What you see happening from a 30,000-foot view here.
Well, I think this word whiplash is very apt, and we have to think about how everyone is getting that sense of whiplash. Not only the parties concerned, like Iran and the United States, even the negotiators of this, the ceasefire, Pakistan being involved, but our allies, our adversaries, the whole world is watching what exactly is not only in the ceasefire, will it stay, what comes next, and also the rhetoric that was the buildup to this on Easter Sunday. As you said, the president being rather profane, rather blasphemous, and even telegraphing his intentionality for committing war crimes. Yesterday, more war crimes and basically genocide by calling for the end of a civilization. So as we're moving forward now, there is that moment to breathe and to go ahead and even exhale because no one wanted to see what was going to be the next step militarily and how much violence and upheaval that was going to cause. You know, when we hear the term war crimes, we automatically go to the only way that we have to understand it, which is to the context by which people view things, which is through media snippets, past events, and perhaps some movies. But if you really look at what it is that we're talking about when it comes to war crimes, we're talking about things like bombing bridges and bombing power infrastructure. Those are things that could be considered war crimes as well, yes? Well, along with those also, we have seen the bombing of hospitals, we have seen the bombing of universities. So civilian infrastructure, which is a very difficult argument to make, has anything to do with a nuclear weapons program, a ballistic weapons program, or getting rid of a regime. This is an annihilation at all sectors, essentially to go ahead and move beyond disrupt. But if someone was to bomb bridges and power structures alone, would that be considered a war crime in terms of being an act that disrupted more than something that would be there to accomplish military action? So this is where we get into the ambiguities of things, because if a power plant or if a bridge can be rationalized or justified to have some kind of military application, or for example, even a commercial aviation airport, that could be sort of the loophole that a government will make. And in fact, that is something that the Trump administration has pushed back and said, these are actually not just civilian targets, these are also the ones that have military relevance as well. Let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz. We're hearing right now, again, this is just all new information coming to us from Dubai, the Associated Press reporting that Iran's foreign minister basically saying the passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be allowed for the next 2 weeks under Iranian military management. People at home are trying to sort this all out. They're going, wait a minute, so who's watching? Who are the good cops? Who are the bad cops? And what are we looking out for? Opening up the Strait of Hormuz, talk for a moment about
what we should be looking out for in the next 2 weeks?
Well, first of all, remember that the Strait of Hormuz was open before the war began, and even during these last 5 weeks, the Strait of Hormuz has remained open. It's just on a more selective basis of who the Iranians are letting through.
Pretty dangerous to go through there right now. Isn't that true? I mean, well, there's afraid to go.
There's a fairly wide channel, and the one that is under Iranian supervision is, of course, one that has safe passage, and we see that ships have been going, particularly to those who are buying Iranian oil. It was very interesting that President Trump, in fact, unilaterally lifted the sanctions on Iranian oil, so the Chinese and others are certainly purchasing that, but we've seen a suspension for those who still allied themselves with either the United States or Israel. What we find now with this promising proposal and ceasefire is that the Iranians will escort ships out of there, which is actually a very good thing, because if they know where the mines have been laid, then of course they're going to have the responsibility and the know-how and expertise to make sure that ships go through there unfettered.
What are some of the sticking points do you suppose exist with this 10-point plan to end this entire conflict?
Well, I think right off the bat, one of the demands I'm sure that the Iranians have made is who's going to be negotiating on the side of the United States. They've already made overtures that they're not interested in hearing.
By the way, this live stream just passed 300,000 views, so I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Thank you so much. Hit the like button.
From the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, or from his envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, whom they see as not really serious when the stakes are so high. A son-in-law and a real estate broker or businessman, they have asked for, at the very least, someone at the level of a Vice President J.D. Vance, and I think it would behoove the United States to demonstrate their seriousness of what's going on by having somebody of that level. If not, then certainly our highest-ranking diplomat, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State.
When you look at the two of them in terms of world respect or most effective in doing something like this, would you say it's someone who's more closely tied to President Trump, or someone who is considered to be simply a cabinet member like Marco Rubio?
Well, I think that what the Iranians are looking at is who's holding the title. I think that they know that even those who are close to President Trump at this moment may not be 5 minutes from now. Remember, the Iranians were negotiating with the United States in Geneva about the nuclear weapons program 12 hours before the war broke out. So they're going to be certainly very suspicious about trusting the United States, irrespective of who's going to be there at the negotiation table. But at the same time, they're very practical, they're very realistic, and they're giving it a good faith shot.
A lot going on here, and we want to thank you for your expertise and your time. It's always great to see you. And thanks for joining us here today. This, if you're just developing us, is new information that we're getting, is that there is a 2-week pause on the fighting so long as the Strait of Hormuz opens. And so because of that, this threat of an end of an entire civilization, some brute words from President Trump, not effective here tonight. But we are getting perspective from an Arab American leader next. State Representative Al-Abbas Farhat with his thoughts next on The Pulse.
Oh, is she bringing up a boss? Is that who you're bringing in?
Tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, so here
not a boss. Okay.
we go. This is good news by all means. As of this morning, we have seen that circulate, that message from President Trump saying that there was a plan perhaps to end an entire civilization. There were many people who were even...
I'm the candy man, Candy.
Trump supporters who are saying this is wrong, this is not the way to talk about it. And at 6:35 p.m., we did get basically a pause to the strikes for 2 weeks if Tehran agrees to immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which they say they will. And so here we are with your reaction, Representative. What are your thoughts on the day that was?
No, I'm glad that we have a pause in the violence. I mean, we've seen innocents being killed in South Lebanon, 1,500 innocents, thousands in Iran, American service members killed here. But make no mistake, America here has lost the moral war. When our president goes on Twitter declaring to end a civilization, that is a war crime. We've lost $40 billion on this conflict, things that could have been spent here to end medical debt, to make healthcare more affordable, to fix our public schools. We spent this money just to end up, in my opinion, in a worse spot than we were in 40 days ago. We just came back. The strait was wide open. It was open for commerce and trade 40 days ago. Here today, we've had to do all this just to get back to where we were. I think it was a disastrous decision from the Trump
Coffee, you do have a membership now, so you have access to all the member emojis.
administration to get us in this mess in the first place.
When you see some of the folks,
lots of videos
who are in Iran, who are civilians, who said under the Ayatollah and the reign of terror, according to so many, they're thankful and grateful that President Trump and the U.S. intervened. How do you tell them differently?
I think if you ask the people of Iran right now if they want to have their water desalination plants blown up, their power plants, their railroad lines, if you ask them if it was okay for the U.S. to bomb and kill 174 schoolgirls on a school on the first day of this conflict, they will, I think, strongly disagree with that statement and that characterization. I think the people of Iran are more galvanized than ever before because of the actions of the United States. And I also think the United States conducted this conflict the way they ended it. They started it with a war crime, and they ended it this morning with a war crime by justifying the killing of those same schoolgirls and then threatening to eliminate a civilization. Let's just think of the totality of that statement. This is the most powerful man in the world who has his finger on the nuclear football, who at any moment can call a military strike, threatening to destroy a civilization. How far have we fallen for our prestige as the global power of peace and diplomacy to now being threatening other countries to completely eliminate them? I mean, I've never seen a pope weigh in on a conflict as much as I have of Pope Leo. And I will say this, yes, I'm a Muslim American, but seeing the leader of the Catholic Church, seeing Pope Leo speak out the way he has with such moral clarity has truly inspired my faith in this in humanity and our shared commonality as humans on this earth together.
Do you find it a bit alarming that people seem in many ways, you talk about galvanization, so many people, regardless of what President Trump says, to use the F word in social media posts on Easter and to talk about ending an entire civilization, yet you still have some ardent right supporters who he can say anything, and they don't seem to condemn it at all. Even the Pope coming out, so many Catholics who support President Trump are saying, Pope Leo, stay out of politics. Well, do you see a problem there?
I think people are starting to wake up more and more every day to this conflict. I think you're seeing pundits like Tucker Carlson or Marjorie Taylor Greene, people who I probably don't agree on a lot with. Megyn Kelly, right? Alex Jones, this guy Alex Jones, I didn't even hear of him until this morning, saying we need the 25th Amendment. And these are hardline, far-right commentators that I've never heard of before today. But you hear them say what they're saying. It tells you how shattered the president's coalition has been. Don't forget, he came to Dearborn, in my city, in 2024. He came and he brought a letter. I have this letter still, where he promised us as Arab American voters there will be peace on day one, that there will be no new wars, there will be no new suffering.
Somebody in the chat earlier put in, send MAGA to the front lines. Send MAGA and Barron to the front lines. What's wrong with you? Why do you want to send anybody to the front line? I don't even care if it's a political statement. Why would you want anybody to be forced to go to the front lines of a war where people could die? Shut up.
In the Middle East, he has broken every promise in that letter. The paper it's printed on, it's not worth that, right? And so this president has shown his word is meaningless. The prestige of the office he holds has been denigrated. Our allies, our longest standing allies, refuse to stand with us because of
do the breaking news a little different around here.
His haphazard approach to this conflict. I mean, we've killed so many civilians. I think people here in America are tired of seeing innocents being killed. They're tired of seeing schoolgirls being killed in the rubble. They're tired of their loved ones being sent overseas when there's nothing here at home for us to be able to appreciate for it.
And you talk about the price of war, this being the most important, the moral price of war, of the loss of life, but you also talk about the money that's being spent. I do want to talk a little bit about how you see this ending. Now that they are coming to the table, regardless of what you felt about how we got here.
Those A-10s are beasts, those things.
Yeah. How do you see us getting out of this?
Yeah. I mean, I hope to see the president operate in good faith in these negotiations. You know, the last 5 negotiations that have happened, the U.S. has killed all those people. They killed the folks at the negotiating table. They bombed Iran when they were 12.
It's a terrible tie for a fat guy.
Hours away from negotiating a deal. I mean, the U.S. has to really reset.
That tie is freaking horrible.
Their approach to these negotiations.
Well, they're meeting in Islamabad in Pakistan this coming Friday with U.S. officials and Iranian officials. So what do you hope comes out of that?
I hope there's a lasting, durable peace, not only between Iran and the U.S. I hope we see the Israeli forces in South Lebanon pull back to the other side of the border. I hope Lebanon is able to continue to live in peace and prosperity, and that we have a peace group that is lasting and durable. Nobody wants to be back in this mess in 4 years from now, 5 years from now.
Representative, it's good to see you. We thank you for your time here tonight. Yeah. And we do thank you for joining us.
Well, you can see there some of the opinions from around the world. We're going to go to another one here, and we are going to dig a little deeper into this story.
You're watching Al Jazeera. We're bringing you some breaking news that's coming out of the United States. These are lines that are coming from the Reuters news agency. We understand that Donald Trump is quoted as saying that he has agreed to suspend bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. Now, this is following a request that was made by Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who had requested an extension of the deadline that Donald Trump had originally set in order for further talks to take place. Donald Trump is apparently quoted to have said that this will be a double-sided ceasefire. He may well be referring to a request that had been made by the Pakistan Prime Minister.
There is the link to the Rumble Uncensored ZeroDarkTony channel right there. The link is in the chat. Go ahead and hit that and give me a follow over on Rumble if you really want to get down. You think this is fun.
To Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz for a corresponding period of 2 weeks as a goodwill gesture. The other lines that we're getting through Reuters saying, we have received a 10-point proposal from Iran. We believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of the past contention have been agreed to between the United States and Iran. He then goes on to say, we are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning a long-term peace with Iran. I want to go to Osama bin Javid, who's our correspondent, who's joining us here in the studio. It was only just a matter of minutes ago that you and I were discussing the possibility of this ceasefire being put into place. And there was a lot of speculation it was coming too late. You described it as a last-ditch effort by the Pakistan Prime Minister in order to try to get some sort of negotiation. It does seem as though, if these lines are to be believed, that it has had a positive response from Donald Trump.
Well, it does indeed. And I think that is going to be a big sigh of relief collectively from the region and beyond, because the alternative was so horrific. As you've seen...
It's a sweet beard, though.
Donald Trump, time and again, talk to his social media base and take the rhetoric to a notch where everybody would essentially, there was the level of anxiety around the region was extraordinary in the last few hours. And Donald Trump was the only man who could defuse it, because he's the one who lit the fuse in the first place. Those words, the first post about using swear words on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, and then saying that he's going to wipe out an entire civilization, just gives you an idea of how much was at stake. So this is, and again, you have to now acknowledge the role relentlessly that was played by the mediators, because as we've been speaking to officials in the last 72 hours, they've been telling us on how uphill this task was in negotiating with both the Iranians and the Americans, because they were essentially talking about egos, not regular diplomacy.
I want to just leave it there for a moment, because I do want to go to Mike Hanna, who's joining us from the White House. As I say, Mike, we're just getting these lines now that are coming out. Are you able to confirm what we're hearing?
We cannot confirm as yet. There's been no formal statement out of the White House. Obviously, these lines have been coming out from Reuters within the last few minutes. We are waiting to hear formally from the White House, the spokesperson, or indeed even the president himself, who is due to make a decision at 8 p.m. That's in just over 1 hour's time. But just to look at these points that are coming out of Reuters, very, very important. First of all, that President Trump is reported as saying he will suspend the attack on Iran for 2 weeks. That's an absolutely critical issue. He says that he believes the 10-point proposal he received from Iran is a workable basis on which to negotiate. So it's going past what is an apparent ceasefire here. It's going towards the nuts and bolts of a possible negotiated, lasting solution.
Boy, he's been in the union a little too long over there. This guy. We're going to go to some of these comments today from J.D. Vance in Hungary. Let's have a listen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to respectfully welcome you all And I'd like to especially welcome His Excellency J.D. Vance, Vice President of the 50th Vice President of the United States of America, at this press conference on the occasion of his visit to Hungary. I'd like to welcome Prime Minister Viktor Orban, Hungarian and American delegation members. I'd like to ask Prime Minister Viktor Orban to deliver his statement. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you'll allow me, I'm going to speak in my mother tongue, Hungarian. I'd like to respectfully and cordially welcome Vice President Vance in Hungary. The last time a vice president from the U.S. visited Hungary was 35 years ago, and we haven't had such a high-ranked American dignitary in Hungary for 20 years. And 20 years, that's quite a long period of time. With the election of President Trump, I believe a golden era has been ushered in our relations. We have enumerated the year of records was 2025 in terms of economic cooperation. 26 also is increasing impetus. We have increased our turnover with 50%, and we had 30 American companies announce FDI to the tune of 100 billion Hungarian forints. We've also strengthened our cooperation, expanded it with space technology and defense. We owe gratitude to President Trump and Vice President Vance for standing by Hungary during the past years. The United States of America is the strongest country in the world, and I am happy to say that they are our allies today. The peace and the security of Hungary, therefore, is guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen, we also discussed the fact that Europe is heading towards one of the worst energy crises of all times.
Well, that's not good news. So Europe is heading towards an energy crisis, so much more going on around the world. I want to thank everybody for joining me here today. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you guys for hitting the like button and subscribing. Thank you, everybody, for the memberships as well. Thank you, mods. You know who walks out of the room with 1,000 in the building? I do. I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.